18 volcanic islands rise from the North Atlantic between Norway, Iceland, and Scotland. This is the Faroe Islands, and roughly 50,000 people call them home. Winds here have been clocked near 250 kilometers per hour, strong enough to blow waterfalls upward, yet families raise children, commute to work, and build lives among these cliffs and storms. The question isn't whether it's difficult, it's why they stay. Basalt cliffs and green plateaus stretch across the Faroe Islands, their shapes carved by ancient volcanic eruptions nearly 55 million years ago. Here, the sea presses in from every side. The archipelago sits alone in the North Atlantic, balanced between Norway, Iceland, and Scotland. Of the 18 islands, 17 are inhabited, home to a population that now edges above 50,000. Life unfolds on narrow strips of land between steep mountains and deep fjords, never more than a few kilometers from the ocean's reach. Weather rules everything. Warm Gulf Stream currents meet cold Arctic air, spinning fog, rain, sunlight, and sudden wind across the islands, sometimes all within a single hour. Summer rarely climbs above 13 degrees Celsius, while winter hovers just above freezing, but it's the wind that shapes daily life. In January 2024, Storm Ingunn swept across the Faroes, its gusts measured close to 250 kilometers per hour, with pressure dropping near 940 hectopascals. Waterfalls like Mulafossur, usually tumbling straight into the sea, were thrown skyward, streams of water suspended and reversed by the force of the storm. Even on calm days, the hillsides glow with a vivid green, a color that endures through mist and downpour. But every plan, school, work, travel must bend to the possibility that at any moment the weather might rewrite the day. Rain or wind at the window signals another Faroese morning, and the weather app is checked before breakfast. Parents and children scan the forecast, knowing plans may shift with a sudden fog or rising wind. For school-age commuters, the day begins in darkness, waterproof jackets zipped, a bus winding along mountain roads, across bridges and through tunnels beneath the sea. Ferries connect islands without fixed links, but rough seas or high winds can cancel crossings, forcing lessons online, delaying work, and leaving groceries waiting on the dock. Cargo ships bring most supplies. Yet storms sometimes keep them offshore. Families rely on freezers filled with local fish or wind-dried lamb from autumn. Neighbors step in, offering rides, sharing food, or checking on elders during long winter nights. Outdoor life adapts to the weather's rhythm, fishing, hiking, and gathering squeezed into brief windows of calm, while summer's short brightness draws everyone outside. When darkness lingers, families gather indoors, sharing meals and stories, keeping traditions alive as the sky and sea dictate the day. Across the Faroe Islands, sheep graze freely on the hills, about 70,000 of them, nearly double the number of people. The island's very name, Faroe, comes from Old Norse for sheep islands, a reminder of how deeply rural life runs through the culture. Sheep are more than a statistic. Their wool, meat, and presence shape the landscape and the rhythms of village life. The capital, Tórshavn, is small by any measure, with fewer than 14,000 residents. Yet on the rocky peninsula of Tinganese, government has gathered for over 1,000 years. Since 825, assemblies have met here, making it one of the world's oldest working parliamentary sites. Today, the Lagting still meets in these historic buildings, tying modern Faroese society to a tradition of self-rule and close community that stretches back to the first settlers. Thick layers of sod lie heavy on the rooftops of Faroese homes, pressed down by centuries of wind and rain. This is more than a visual signature, it's insulation, a living barrier against the raw Atlantic air. The tradition began out of necessity, stone walls topped with earth and grass, trapping warmth as storms swept the islands. Even now, new houses sometimes carry on the practice, blending modern waterproofing and insulation with the old green roofs. In villages and towns, these turf roofs are mowed by sheep in summer, their roots binding the structure together just as families do inside. Yet the same exposure that shaped the architecture also demanded new ways to connect the scattered communities. In December 2020, a tunnel called Eysturoyartunnelin opened beneath the seabed, running 11.24 kilometers to link Streymoy and Eysturoy. Its deepest stretch reaches nearly 190 meters below the ocean, and at its heart is the world's first undersea roundabout, more than 70 meters down, lit by swirling bands of colored light. For a commuter, what once meant an hour's drive over mountain roads and bridges now takes about 15 minutes underground. The tunnel's predictability means reaching work, school, or a hospital is no longer a gamble with the weather. It is a feat of engineering that brings neighbors, goods, and services within reach, even as the wind howls above. On Mykonos, the westernmost reach of the Faroes, daily life is pared down to essentials. In winter, the island's year-round population may shrink to a single family. Summer brings tens of thousands of puffins, their beaks bright against the cliffs, and a brief surge of birdwatchers from across Europe. But as the ferry from Sorvagor depends entirely on the mood of the Atlantic, schedules vanish with the first sign of rough seas. Cancellations can stretch for days, leaving residents to ration supplies and postpone work or medical trips. There are no roads, just steep, grassy paths winding between the handful of homes and the edge of the puffin colonies. Every errand is a climb. When the visitors leave and the birds depart, the island returns to its quiet rhythm, shaped by weather and the fragile link to the rest of the archipelago. The Faroe Islands' table and territory have always been shaped by the limits of the land. Wind scours the hills, and the thin volcanic soil allows only the hardiest grasses and mosses to take hold. Trees are rare, and farmland is scarce. In these conditions, families have relied on preservation more than harvest. Raced, the island's signature food, begins with lamb slaughtered in autumn and hung for weeks or months in open-air chaleur sheds. The salty air and constant wind ferment and dry the meat, turning survival into a taste acquired over centuries. This technique, unchanged for roughly 500 years, transforms hardship into tradition. Each slice of raced carries the memory of winters when nothing fresh could be gathered. But the sea, never far from any home, offers abundance. Wild fishing boats head into the Atlantic, while salmon farming rings float in sheltered fjords, their grids of nets visible from the cliffs above. In towns like Klaksvik and Runavik, the harbor's daily rhythm is set by the arrival of trawlers and the schedules of processing plants. Fish and fish products account for up to 95% of export earnings, linking nearly every family to the marine supply chain, whether hauling nets, tending salmon pens, or packing boxes for ships bound overseas. The ocean provides food, work, and identity, but it also demands care. Questions about sea lice, nutrient runoff, and the future of open net farming are never far from the conversation. Here, the line between sustenance and stewardship runs as deep as the fjords themselves. Faroese identity is carried in the rhythm of daily life, not locked away in museums or monuments. The language, descended directly from Old Norse, flows through kitchens and classrooms, spoken by children and elders alike. Though Danish ruled the islands for centuries, Faroese survived in the home, in songs and ballads, and in the communal chain dance that still brings neighbors together. Written Faroese found its form in 1854, and after 1948 it became the official language of self-government, now heard in parliament debates, news broadcasts, and playground arguments. Connection to the wider world is instant. High-speed internet brings global news and football highlights to every village, yet traditions are renewed face-to-face. On windswept fields, the domestic football league draws crowds who cheer their local teams, while the national side faces giants on the international stage, their victories celebrated across the islands. Each July, Torshavn erupts for Olavsoka. Rowing races cut across the harbor, traditional dancers link arms in the city streets, and music, old and new, fills the air. Families gather, sharing food and stories, celebrating together no matter the weather. Here, identity is lived, shaped by both ancient ties and the choices of each new generation. Life in the Faroe Islands is shaped by a careful balance between safety, belonging, and the wildness of the North Atlantic. Security comes from reliable healthcare, schools ready for sudden weather, and emergency teams who know every road and fjord. Community is woven into daily life, families stay close, neighbors help each other, and traditions remain part of ordinary routines. The landscape is more than scenery. Cliffs and waterfalls guide how people gather and work. Undersea tunnels and new roads connect remote villages, letting younger Faroese stay without giving up opportunity. Fishing and salmon farming still anchor the economy, tying most households to the sea. Tourism brings about 100,000 visitors each year, offering new income but also straining small villages and fragile landscapes. Some trails close for maintenance, a reminder of the need to protect what makes the islands unique. Modernization helps retain youth, but rapid change can threaten the intimacy of village life. For many, life here is identity, resilience, and a deep bond with nature. Today, nearly 57,000 people build lives here, shaped by storms, yet bound by choice. As tourism and technology pull the Faroes closer to the world, the true test is not endurance, but how identity endures. In the island's wildness, belonging is both a challenge and a gift.